They called it absolutely fireproof. It was printed on the programs. It was painted on the walls in gold lettering above the lobby doors. It was the single most repeated phrase in every newspaper advertisement for the most beautiful theatre Chicago had ever built. 5 weeks. That's how long the Iroquois Theatre had been open. 5 weeks before a single match, a single careless spark, would turn the safest building in America into the deadliest single building fire in United States history, a disaster that would kill more people than the Great Chicago Fire, that had burned the entire city 32 years earlier. 602 people, mostly women, mostly children, dead in less than 20 minutes. Not because there was no way out, because someone had made sure the ways out were hidden, bolted, curtained off, or locked entirely. This is the story of December 30th, 1903. This is the story of the day Chicago learned that fireproof was a word, not a promise. To understand what happened inside the Iroquois Theatre, you first have to understand what Chicago was trying to prove to the world. By 1903, Chicago was a city obsessed with rebirth. Everyone in America still remembered October of 1871, when flames tore through the city for 2 days, destroyed over 17,000 buildings, and left 100,000 people homeless. Chicago had rebuilt itself into a monument to modern engineering. The first skyscrapers on Earth rose from its streets, powered by steel frames and electric light, and an unshakable civic belief that this city, of all cities, understood fire, respected it, had defeated it. So when a group of investors decided to build the most opulent theatre the Midwest had ever seen, they didn't just want beautiful, they wanted safe. They wanted the public to walk through those doors and feel in their bones that nothing bad could happen here. Not in this city, not in this building. The Iroquois Theatre opened on November 23, 1903, on Randolph Street in the heart of the Chicago Loop. And it was, by every account, breathtaking. Marble staircases, stained glass, a ceiling painted with cherubs and classical goddesses, 6-story-high walls dressed in gold leaf, velvet seats for 1,600 people, with standing room that regularly pushed the crowd past 2,000. It was designed to rival the grand opera houses of Paris and Vienna. A temple to entertainment, built in under 2 years, rushed to completion in time for the lucrative holiday season. And everywhere you looked, there was that word, fireproof. The architect, Benjamin Marshall, had genuinely tried to build in modern safety features. An asbestos fire curtain that could drop between the stage and the audience in seconds, sealing off any backstage blaze. Exit doors along the sides of the auditorium. Ventilation shafts above the stage designed to pull smoke and heat up and out of the building rather than into the crowd. On paper, it should have worked. But paper doesn't burn people, and what actually existed inside the Iroquois Theatre on the night of December 30th, 1903, bore only a passing resemblance to what was on paper, because behind that gold leaf and marble, corners had been cut in almost every direction. And nobody in the audience that holiday week had any idea. It's the Wednesday between Christmas and New Year's, 1903. School is out. Families are looking for something to do with restless children before the holidays end and routine resumes. The Iroquois is running a matinee performance of Mr. Bluebeard, a lavish musical comedy starring the biggest stage comedian in America at the time, Eddie Foy. It's loud, colourful, full of dancing girls in elaborate costumes, trapdoor tricks, and spectacle. It is in every sense the perfect family matinee. By 2:30 in the afternoon, roughly 1,900 people have packed into a theatre built to comfortably hold 1,600. Extra chairs have been wedged into the aisles. Standing patrons line the back walls 3 and 4 deep. Children sit on their parents' laps to save space. It's a full house. The kind of full house that makes theatre owners smile and safety inspectors deeply nervous. Picture the crowd for a moment. Mothers in wool coats holding the gloved hands of daughters in their good Christmas dresses. Groups of schoolgirls out of class for the week, giggling together in matinee seats bought as a treat. Elderly grandparents brought along by their families. This is not a crowd of theatre sophisticates out for an evening of culture. This is Chicago's ordinary families, enjoying one of the last cheap luxuries of the holiday season. Up on stage, the second act is underway. Dancers in elaborate costume move through a number called the Pale Moonlight Ballet. Dimmed house lights, coloured spotlights, a company of chorus girls in flowing, gauzy fabric surrounding a lead performer. Above them, hidden in the rigging over the stage, hangs a canopy of drapery and calcium lights, carbon arc spotlights that burn incredibly hot and throw off sparks when adjusted. Nobody in the audience can see it. But right now, above the dancers' heads, one of those lights is about to malfunction. In 9 minutes, this theatre will become a slaughterhouse. A stagehand adjusting one of the overhead carbon arc lights sees it happen. A spark jumps from the arc lamp and catches on a muslin drape hanging just above the stage. Thin, gauzy fabric used to diffuse the moonlight effect for the ballet number. For a moment, it's nothing. A tiny curl of flame, no bigger than a candle. The fire licks upward along the drape. A stagehand grabs a fire extinguisher, really just a tube of dry powder meant to smother small flames, and tries to knock it down. It doesn't work. The fire licks upward along the drape, finds the next piece of hanging fabric, and doubles in size. This is the part of the story that should have ended differently, because theatres like this were required, on paper, to have sprinkler systems above the stage specifically for this scenario. The Iroquois did not have one installed. The valve that was supposed to connect to a standpipe for firefighting hoses backstage had never actually been connected to a water source. Sandbags meant to weigh down the fire curtain in case it needed to drop quickly had been removed to make it easier for stagehands to move set pieces. Every single safety measure that existed specifically to stop a fire, exactly like this one, had been quietly disabled, removed, or was never functional in the first place. Within 90 seconds, flame is racing up the scenery flats stacked in the wings. The painted canvas backdrops used for scene changes, coated in decades of oil-based paint and treated with flammable materials to make them stiffen and hold shape. The fire finds them, and it explodes upward. On stage, Eddie Foy, the star of the show, is in the wings preparing for his next entrance when he sees the flames catching above the dancers' heads. He does something almost nobody expects from a comedian. He walks calmly out onto the stage, in the middle of the number, and begins speaking directly to the audience. "Don't get excited," he tells them. "There's no danger. Take it slowly. Play, Dave, play." He's trying, genuinely, bravely trying, to prevent the one thing that is about to kill hundreds of people in that room. Panic. Total and absolute panic. Somewhere backstage, a stage manager gives the order everyone had been promised would save them if this exact moment ever came. Drop the asbestos fire curtain. This is the single feature the Iroquois had marketed above all others. A heavy fire-resistant curtain, hung on a system of ropes and pulleys, designed to fall between the stage and the audience in seconds, sealing the burning backstage away from the 1,600 people sitting in the house. It begins to drop, falling slowly toward the stage. And then it stops, caught by an unforeseen obstacle. Partway down, the curtain catches on a lighting truss projecting out over the stage that nobody accounted for when the curtain was installed, or possibly on wiring for the electric signage above the proscenium. Whatever the exact cause, the curtain freezes at an angle, leaving a gap of several feet between its bottom edge and the stage floor. Through that gap now roars a physics problem that very few people in that auditorium could have understood in the moment, but which fire investigators would study for decades afterward. The stagehands, in a desperate attempt to help the actors and dancers escape the burning stage, had done the one thing that guaranteed catastrophe. They'd opened the massive loading doors at the back of the stage, the ones used to bring scenery in from the alley outside. Cold December air came rushing in through those open doors, directly into a stage now fully engulfed in flame, and directly toward that gap beneath the stuck curtain. and directly toward the only other way out of that furnace, the auditorium, packed with 1,900 people. Fire investigators would later describe what happened next in a single chilling phrase: a blowtorch effect. The fresh oxygen didn't just feed the fire, it launched it. A superheated fireball, flame, smoke, and burning debris blasted out from beneath the stuck curtain and across the ceiling of the auditorium in a matter of seconds, rolling over the heads of the audience like a wave breaking over a beach. It happened so fast that people in the front rows, who had been laughing at the ballet number moments earlier, were engulfed before they even understood there was a real fire at all. This is the chapter of the story that turns a terrible accident into an unforgivable tragedy, because the fire itself, as horrific as it was, did not kill most of the 602 people who died that afternoon. The doors did, becoming the true instrument of death. Understand the layout of the Iroquois Theatre as it actually existed, not as it was advertised. Along the sides of the upper balconies there were exit doors leading to fire escapes and stairwells. But many of those doors were disguised behind heavy curtains, made to blend seamlessly into the decorative walls so they wouldn't disrupt the room's elegant appearance. Patrons sitting in the balcony that afternoon had no idea those doors even existed. They had walked past them on the way to their seats without a single sign, without a single usher pointing them out, without so much as a word in the program. Some of the doors that patrons did find were bolted shut, locked to prevent people from sneaking in without a ticket through the side alleys. Ushers who might have carried keys had already fled the building. The doors that weren't locked had a different, equally lethal problem. They opened inward. Think about what that means for a moment. As the panicked crowd surged toward those exits, a wall of hundreds of bodies pressing forward, driven by pure animal terror as smoke and flame rolled across the ceiling above them. The doors needed to swing into that same crowd to open. Modern building codes call this exact type of hardware a head-ass panic bar, precisely because doors under crowd pressure must swing outward, away from the crush, or they simply cannot be opened at all. The Iroquois had no such doors. People were crushed against those exits, unable to pull them open against the sheer weight of bodies behind them, while the fireball rolled overhead, and the temperature in the upper balcony climbed past anything a human body could survive. There was one exit that did work, a fire escape at the rear of the upper gallery. But when the door finally swung open, there were no landings, no completed staircases waiting outside. Some accounts describe unfinished ironwork, missing steps, a fire escape that had never been properly completed before the theatre rushed to open for the holiday season. Dozens of people, having fought their way to what should have been salvation, fell to their deaths in the alley below trying to escape a building that was still, on paper, absolutely fireproof. And in the panic on the stairwells connecting the upper balcony to the ground floor, something happened that investigators would later describe with a clinical, devastating term. A human logjam, bodies piled at the doorways, 10 and 15 deep, the living crushed against the dead, unable to move forward or back, as smoke and heat consumed the air itself. Rescue workers who arrived afterward would describe finding entire stairwells, packed floor to ceiling with bodies, layered like sandbags against a door that refused to open. Firefighters arriving at the scene, expecting a working fire alarm to have already summoned them. There was none. The theatre had no fire alarm system connected to the city, instead found something almost impossible to comprehend. From the street outside, the building looked barely damaged. No visible flame, no collapsed walls. Because the entire disaster, every single one of those 602 deaths, had happened in one enclosed room in under 20 minutes, without the fire ever spreading beyond the stage and auditorium themselves. The building was practically intact, showing no outward scars. The people inside it were not, having perished within. When rescue crews finally broke through the exits, what they found inside would haunt Chicago for a generation. The upper balconies had taken the worst of it, trapped furthest from the ground floor exits, closest to the ceiling where the fireball and smoke had concentrated. Entire rows of seats held the bodies of people who appeared, from a distance, simply asleep, killed instantly by superheated toxic gases, before the flames themselves ever reached them. Many of the dead showed no burns at all. They had suffocated or been overcome by smoke in the space of a few agonizing breaths. At the base of the jammed exit doors, rescuers found what newspapers of the time called, with grim Victorian understatement, piles of the dead. Men, women and children who had died crushed against doors that would not open. Doors that opened the wrong way. Doors that had been hidden behind decorative curtains just an hour before. Because it had been a matinee, a holiday show priced for families, timed for children out of school. The casualty list skewed overwhelmingly toward women and young girls. Mothers who had died still gripping their daughters' hands. Entire families lost in the same few square feet of balcony. Estimates of the dead climbed for days as injured victims succumbed in hospitals across the city. The final toll, 602 dead. More than the passengers and crew who would die aboard the Titanic 9 years later. More than had died in the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, a fire that consumed 4 square miles of the entire city. All of it in one room in less than 20 minutes. Chicago. The city that had rebuilt itself into a monument of modern engineering, the city that believed it understood fire better than anywhere else on Earth, had just suffered the deadliest single-building fire in American history. Inside a theatre, it had been told, in gold lettering above the lobby doors, was absolutely fireproof. In the days that followed, Chicago's rage needed somewhere to go, and there was no shortage of targets. Investigators descended on the wreckage and began cataloguing failure after failure, each one more damning than the last. The asbestos curtain, heavily advertised, barely functional, had been made with a fraction of the asbestos content required to actually resist fire, mixed instead with ordinary cotton fibre to cut costs. The sprinkler system above the stage, the one specific safeguard designed for exactly this scenario, had never been connected. Exit signage was non-existent. City fire codes technically required illuminated exit signs, but the theatre's owners argued the signs would ruin the elegant aesthetic they'd spent a fortune creating, and inspectors had let it go. Fire alarm boxes, standpipes, functioning fire escapes, panic bar hardware on exit doors, provision after provision, quietly skipped in the rush to open before Christmas. An investigation later revealed that city building inspectors had toured the theatre before opening night and noted the missing safety features in their reports. The theatre opened anyway. Public fury exploded. Newspapers ran the names of the dead across entire front pages for days. Grand juries were convened. Indictments were handed down against the theatre's owners, its manager, and even city officials accused of accepting bribes to look the other way on inspections. And then, in one of the most bitter footnotes of the entire tragedy, almost no one was ever punished. Legal delays stretched for years. Charges were dropped, reduced, or quietly dismissed on technicalities. Some of the men most directly responsible for the shortcuts that killed 602 people faced no meaningful legal consequence at all. Not a single person ever served significant prison time for the Iroquois Theatre fire. For the families who had buried mothers, daughters, sisters and sons in the first days of January 1904, the message was unmistakable and unbearable. The system built to hold power accountable for the deaths of ordinary people had simply failed a second time. But here is the part of this story that outlived the courtroom failures. Because even though the men responsible walked free, the fire itself did not go unanswered. The Iroquois Theatre disaster became, almost overnight, the single most consequential fire in the history of American building safety. Cities across the country rushed to inspect their own theatres in the fire's immediate aftermath, and many were shut down on the spot for the exact same violations found in Chicago. Locked exits, missing sprinklers, non-functional fire curtains. The concept of the panic bar, the crash bar exit hardware you still see today on the back of every school gymnasium, every movie theatre, every stadium door on Earth, was developed and mandated in direct response to what happened at the Iroquois. Doors in public buildings were now legally required to swing outward, in the direction a panicked crowd would naturally push, rather than inward against them. Illuminated exit signage The red glowing word "exit" above nearly every public doorway you have ever walked through in your life became a legal standard specifically because families testified that their loved ones died searching for doors they never even knew existed, hidden behind decorative curtains, unseen in the chaos. Building codes across the United States were rewritten to require functioning sprinkler systems above stages, standpipes connected to actual water sources, fire alarms wired directly to city fire departments, and completed structurally sound fire escapes before a single ticket could legally be sold. Occupancy limits. The maximum capacity numbers now posted by law near the entrance of nearly every theatre, restaurant, and public hall in the country trace directly back to the image of 1,900 people crammed into a room built for 1,600. Every time you have walked into a modern building and instinctively glanced toward a lit exit sign, every time you've pushed open a door with a metal bar across it instead of turning a handle, every time a venue has told you it's already sold out and cannot legally let one more person through the doors, you are living inside the answer to December 30th, 1903. 602 people paid for that knowledge with their lives, inside a theatre built to be a monument to safety, in a city that believed, with genuine and catastrophic confidence, that it had already learned everything fire had to teach it. The Iroquois Theatre itself did not stay closed for long. Within a year, the building reopened under a new name, the Colonial Theatre, its interior rebuilt, its gold-leafed ceiling repainted, its story quietly folded into the past, the way cities often try to fold away their worst afternoons. But walk through any modern theatre today, any concert hall, any movie multiplex, any school auditorium, and you are walking through the legacy of that gap beneath a stuck fire curtain, that door that opened the wrong way, that sign no one thought the room needed. Somewhere in Chicago, in a cemetery outside the city, rows of headstones still mark December 30th, 1903, as the day entire families disappeared in the space of 20 minutes, inside a room they had been promised, in gold letters above the door, was absolutely fireproof. It wasn't the fire that killed most of them. It was everything that was supposed to stop it, and didn't.